Hello and welcome to Watch Releases Recap for the week of December 8th until December the 15th. Let's begin with Frederique Constant and their new Classics Premier collection. Frederique Constant is a relatively new watch company when we compare it to some of the industry giants. However, they have an impressive resume, including some of their in-house movements, off-the-shelf movements, as well as various lines of watches. Classics is one of their existing model lines. However, this time they added 3 new models. They're each limited edition and they each are powered by Joux-Perret automatic movements, which is very different. Usually these Classics collections and a lot of these more affordable watches are powered by an off-the-shelf ETA or Celita movement. But these 3 new models are powered by the Joux-Perret movement, which is owned by the Citizen Group. Also, the Frederique Constant is owned by the Citizen Group, so I guess this move makes sense. This automatic caliber G100 is sort of the next step up from the Celita movement. It's not a copy of an ETA, it is its own thing. I think it's actually based on a Miyota movement. It is a high beat movement beating at 4 Hz. It also has 68 hours of power reserve as opposed to the 38 hours like you find on the ETA or the Celita, so there is a step up there, and these movements by all accounts are fairly accurate. They're also quite beautiful to look at. You see some Geneva striping, you see some blued screws, and this one of course has a custom rotor. As far as the watches themselves go, they're very traditional dress pieces. 38.5 millimeters in diameter, only 11.5 millimeters in case thickness. They all come in stainless steel cases. However, there is one that is gold plated. It is not pure gold, it is gold plated. That's why the price is a little bit more affordable. The styling is very conservative with the Roman numerals, with this sort of traditional set of hands. I really like how clean this watch looks, and I really appreciate the fact that it doesn't have a date wheel. I think a date wheel would really ruin this design. Out of the 3 options, my favorite is probably the wide dial with the stainless steel case, although this rose gold case also looks kind of nice. Not a big fan of this black dial. I don't know why. Usually I like black dials on watches, but this one for some reason doesn't do it for me. In terms of the pricing, as I mentioned, they're limited to 500 pieces for each version. And for the stainless steel case versions, it's 1,695 euros. For the gold plated version, it's 1,995 euros. So I think the prices are fairly reasonable. I think this is just the first step to test the water with these movements. And as I said previously, we're probably going to see more and more of these higher end movements make their way to Frederique Constant lines. The new Zenith Defy Extreme Mirror. So this watch is weird. It's essentially a Zenith Defy 21 Extreme, but with an all polished case and an all polished bracelet. When the industry is moving towards these sort of smaller vintage inspired watches, Zenith doubles down on an over-the-top 45mm, 16mm in thickness, big chronograph. And as if it didn't stand out enough, they made it all mirror polished, including the subdials, including the little accents on the dial. Everything is there to reflect the light to attract a lot of attention. I think this watch will be a nightmare to photograph. I'm not jealous of the photographers and the videographers trying to capture this watch on film. I personally liked the Zenith Defy collection. I was very close to buying one. Unfortunately, it wasn't in the stars, but you know, maybe one day it will make its way into my watch box. Some of the versions are better than others. This one is one of these versions that is not for me personally. I think having an all polished design can work on some watches, but it also can cheapen the look of others. And I think this one kind of looks, I hate to say it, a little cheap, especially with that bracelet. I don't know what it is, but the combination of this all polished case and an all polished bracelet just makes the watch look like something from AliExpress. Now, of course, I know that it's Zenith, the quality is there, the design is there when you see it in person, when you feel it. It's not going to feel like a cheap watch, but just looking at the photos, I don't know what it is about it. It just kind of looks a little cheap. The price of this watch is anything but cheap. It comes at 28,000 euros, which is quite a bit of money. You do get that El Primero 9004 automatic movement, which is incredible. It's a super high frequency chronograph movement. The timekeeping beats at 36,000 vibrations per hour, which is kind of reasonable for El Primero movements. However, the seconds hand for the chronograph beats at 360,000 vibrations per hour, or 100 ticks per second, which means that you can time something up to 1/100th of a second. There's a lot of engineering that went into creating this movement. It's a beautiful movement to look at. Of course, you have the display case back and you have semi-skeletonized dial to appreciate all the little components of this masterpiece. I'm glad that Zenith is releasing watches like this, over the top, out of the box designs. It's just not for me. I think within the Zenith Defy, even the Zenith Defy Extreme lines of watches, there are watches that are more appealing to me. But hey, that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think about this watch in the comment section below. Moving on to the next release. The new Junghans Meister Fein automatic. Junghans is a German watch company with rich history in watchmaking. They've been making watches for something like 160 years, so they know a thing or two about releasing a beautiful looking watch. Generally speaking, their design language is Bauhaus inspired, very simplistic, very German, if that's a thing. Now, these two dress watches come in classic dress watch cases, 39.5 millimeters in diameter, only 11 millimeters in thickness. They both come in stainless steel cases, high polish everywhere, a crown at the 3 o'clock position, and two different dial variations. There's the blue tint one and the gold one. I like the gold one. I think it looks very sharp. One thing that makes this watch a little bit different is that vintage Junghans font for the logo. I think that looks very cool. The thing that I don't like about this watch is a date window at the 3 o'clock position. I think it looks out of place and it ruins the symmetry of this dial. I might be alone in my thought, but I wish this watch didn't have a date window, or if it did, it was integrated a little bit better. These watches come powered by the caliber J800.1 automatic movement, which is essentially a modified Sellita SW200 that has 26 joules, beats at 28,800 vibrations per hour, and it has 36 hours of power reserve. I think some decorating went into this movement, so they take the standard Sellita and they add some blued screws and some other parts. I think the movement is a little bit more exposed and you can see all that beauty through a display case back. It's not a screw down display case back, it's held in place with screws. That's why the watch only has 30 meters of water resistance, but that's all you really need for a dress timepiece. The price of this watch I think is very reasonable, 1,690 euros. I think they did a great job with this release. Just get rid of that date window. Otherwise, it's a great dress piece. The Seiko Prospex Speedtimer SSC 937. A few years ago, when Seiko released their Speedtimer solar-powered chronograph watches, there was a lot of hype going on about them. I myself got swept up in this hype. I think the watches looked very sharp and the price was reasonable. It was around $700, I think. Now, of course, you can find them on the gray market for way cheaper. And since that initial release, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, they have released quite a few different versions of this watch, different dial variations, different size variations even, and of course some limited editions. Well, this new edition is a limited edition to 3,000 pieces and it's EU market exclusive. I don't know why Seiko insists on making these regional exclusives. Just make them worldwide, so if I want to buy one of these watches, I can just go ahead and buy it instead of having to use some proxy servers and some dealers and pay a little bit extra. I don't know why Seiko uses this stupid practice. Besides the stupid practice, I think the watch itself actually looks very sharp. Besides having a slightly different dial color, it has this sort of baby blue dial color. It also comes with a stainless steel brushed bezel. All of the Speedtimers come with a stainless steel bezel, even though some of them look like they're made out of ceramic. They're still ionized stainless steel, I think. Well, this new model comes with that natural brushed stainless steel look. I also appreciate the little pops of color on the seconds hand. I think this watch looks great. It is just ruined once again with the date wheel between 4 and 5. Why? Why include it? And if you're going to include it, match the background of the date wheel to the color of the dial. It would look so much better. But of course, Seiko insists on cutting costs. They don't want to create a whole new date wheel specifically for this model, so they're just using their existing movement, existing date wheels from other models within this range. Besides that slight disappointment with the date wheel, I think everything else about this watch is great. The size is still the same, 39.5 millimeters diameter, 45.5 millimeter lug-to-lug distance, and they're only about 13.3 millimeters in thickness because of course they come powered by the quartz solar powered movement caliber V192. I think it's a great movement and it's a great choice for a watch like this. It of course keeps the price under $1,000. This one is priced at 780 euros, which I think is a somewhat fair price for a watch like this. I think it's a little bit too expensive. If this watch was around $500, that would be better, but 780, it's still okay. The new Breitling Super Ocean Heritage 57 Highlands collection. Since Breitling's change of ownership, they've been making a lot of good moves within the watch industry. They've been expanding some of their more popular lines, simplifying other lines, and in general, making some attractive watches. This new diver collection is a little puzzling to me because these are clearly diver watches. However, they're inspired by, at least according to Breitling, by Scottish Highlands. So they're kind of hiking watches that look like diver watches, but they have gold bezels. It's sort of a puzzling watch. I don't know why watches have to be inspired by things. You can just have a watch because it's a cool watch. I think it doesn't need that whole story behind it, but maybe I just don't know the marketing of watches and all watches need to be inspired by some natural phenomenon. This new 4-piece collection comes with 4 different dial and bezel colors. My favorite is probably the green or the blue one. I think both of them look very sharp. However, I don't think I'm the target market for this watch. I think Breitling is actually focusing on women. If you look at some of their marketing materials, it is clearly pivoting towards marketing these watches towards women. The case size is 38 millimeters in diameter by only 9.3 millimeters in case thickness, which is super impressive. Now the watch only has 100 meters of water resistance, which is okay for a watch like this. It's more of a desk diver, your everyday type of watch. And of course, they have been inspired by Scottish Highlands out of all things. So clearly this is more of a land diver than a diver. All cases are made out of stainless steel. They all feature 18 karat rose gold bezels and ceramic bezel inserts. The movement powering this watch is a Breitling Caliber 10, which is essentially a modified ETA 2982 automatic movement, beating at 28,800 vibrations per hour and having 42 hours of power reserve. Now, the thing that I'm not so crazy about with this collection is the price. It's priced at $6,250 US, which I think is a little bit too steep for a watch like this because of that Caliber 10 movement. I think this watch should be around $4,500, something like that. Then it would make it a much better value proposition. But let me know what you guys think about this new line of Breitling watches. Do you find them attractive? Do you think the price is fair? Leave your comments in the comment section below. And lastly, let's talk about another watch story. This one is not a new release. It's more of a headline that I wanted to bring to your attention. And it's the fact that Breitling just bought Universal Genève. It's not Breitling the brand that bought Universal Genève, it's their parent company, the Partners Group, the ownership of Breitling that now acquired Universal Genève from a Hong Kong-based holdings company. Now, 2 things are important to keep in mind. Number 1, Universal Genève is a very important watch company. They were huge in 1940s, 50s, and 60s. They were frequently compared to the likes of Omega and Rolex. There are quite a few iconic chronograph watches and iconic moon phase watches that Universal Genève has produced over the years. In 1970s, when the quartz crisis really hit, they couldn't survive and they had to go under. Since then, the ownership of this brand has changed hands a few times and Hong Kong Holdings brand has acquired it, I think in 1989. The second thing you need to keep in mind is that Universal Genève was actually active over the last few years. They are still making and selling watches. However, they weren't that active in Europe and North America. It was more of an Asian market company. And if you look at their catalog, you can see that they didn't bring too many of their vintage models back to life. A lot of people within the watch industry are very excited about this acquisition because even though Universal Genève has been active in the watchmaking industry. It hasn't been active in the right way, or at least what I think is the right way. They haven't really introduced any of their vintage in-house movements. They haven't reintroduced any of their vintage models. My prediction over the next few years with this new ownership, we're gonna see some great new models or new old models come from Universal Genève, and I'm all for it. And that's it. Those were the new watch releases and watch news for this week. Thanks for watching this video all the way until the end. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the YouTube channel for more videos like this, and leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what watch releases stood out to you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.